Hello and welcome to 3 Points and a Poem. Today the poem is from a singing teacher and it's in fact a quote. So it's not technically a poem and I'll make the 3 points from it. I'll tell you first, the singing teacher was Alfred Wolfson and his quote has to do with how he feels about sound. Quote, I live by breathing in and breathing out. I sing by transforming this breath into sound, the sound which in turn forms the material for contents of the soul. Unquote. I love this so much. And the point I want to make about it is firstly, little background. So Alfred Wolfson had been a singing person and then ended up in war, and he was a medic. So he carried people off of the battlefield, by and large, the wounded and the dead. And he heard sounds that he never imagined existed. And from that developed a philosophy. So moving into point two, the philosophy was that each sound is sacred and each sound has its own universe within it. And after Alfred Wolfson passed away, going into point three, his proteges took over his work and created the Roy Hart Theater. And the vocal training in Roy Hart, sometimes called Hart, is really inclusive. You can simply play with your voice when you're training and find sounds. There's also several exercises that are more structured and formal. But what's amazing about the style of voice work, Roy Hart, is that the people who do it tend to develop phenomenal range. And part of that is because I believe they bust limiting beliefs around what their own voice can do. So when I'm personally training in Roy Hart, it was the primary vocal technique that was taught at the Master in Fine Arts that I did. And we did it almost every day. And when we weren't in a class, we would do it on our own. And we would just play with finding sounds and moving sounds into different parts of our body and not necessarily thinking to ourselves, well, I'm an alto. How could I ever get that high? And that note goes really way past my range. Well, what if I try it and my voice just cracks? What if I try it and my voice doesn't even crack? I sort of find it. Maybe it's a little bit more quiet. But over time, I developed the ability to even belt out this song. And that's the end of our 3 points, but I am going to add a PS point in that similar to sound, but slightly different, but very similar. I did this with whistling. So there was a little bit of a belief in my family that for whatever reason, it was hard for us to whistle. Not very many people in my family whistled, apart from my grandfather, who whistled a lot. And I thought to myself, well, how can I whistle? No one seems to be able to whistle except for my Lelo. And over time, I decided I would learn how to whistle. So I kept trying, kept trying. And even now, I keep trying. And I have gotten to a point where I have an okay whistle. It sounds a little bit like this, like it's not necessarily at the belting volume that my grandfather had. I don't have a huge range in terms of pitch with it, but it's so fun. And I will say, as you may be well aware, it's a little bit like the vroom, vroom sound I talked about in an older video that comes from the trauma therapist Dr. Peter Levine, that's one of the ways to tone the vagus nerve. It's our 10th cranial nerve, essentially the heart of the polyvagal system that goes from our eyes all the way down to our base. And this system is a gigantic driver of the parasympathetic nervous system. So, parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest, the pause and ponder, the tend and befriend. Very different from the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn. It's fast and tends to alert when stress levels have reason or maybe no reason to go high, but they just have gone high. So this technique of whistling, this technique of rooming, and even going back to the Roy Hart Theater voice technique and all that Alfred Wolfson carried into his work around each sound being sacred, allowing your voice to be your voice, letting it move through whatever parts of you it moves through, and going to places maybe that feel a little scary sometimes, places where it's perhaps a little more experimental. You may find that something shifts in you. So just like the vroom will tone the vagal nerve and get the parasympathetic to go online, whistling does a similar thing. Whistling also feels really good when I'm working. It helps me focus for whatever reason. And then practicing sounding in ways that perhaps surprise me, perhaps help me make a brand new sound to myself. Maybe somebody else has made it, are liberating and fulfilling and beautiful. And with that, I thank you for stopping by. Yours in carrying the light.